The whole idea of photography is to take good photos and photos that you actually like. Yet so many beginners fall into the same pitfalls, traps, and make the same mistakes time and time again that lead them to not taking good photos. So today, I want to walk you through some of the most common mistakes I see beginner photographers make and mistakes that I made when I was a beginner photographer and how you can avoid them. So without further ado, let's dive in to today's video. Shooting with the light is probably the easiest way to take photos that feel like they were just taken on your phone. It is the quickest way to also take photos that feel flat, uninspiring, and overall just a little bit meh. Now, what I mean with shooting with the light. Shooting with the light means the light is going to be behind you and you're both facing the same way. For example, this photo here, the light is behind me and everything feels really, really flat. Versus if we flip things around really quickly and all of a sudden the light is in front of me facing the opposite direction and I'm shooting arguably into the light. Now my subject looks 10 times better. There's contrast, depth, things naturally look good and rich, and things look way better. Now this is just one really simple and quick example to show you that shooting against the light can be an amazing tool that you can use for when you're out taking photos. Now you don't always need to be shooting against the light either. Shooting with side lighting is another really good lighting technique that you can take advantage of when you're out shooting photos. And once again, it gives that natural depth, it gives that natural contrast that looks super, super nice in photos. So does shooting with the light always result in bad photos? Absolutely not. It's just more common to take bad looking photos when you're shooting with the light versus when you're shooting against it. And especially when you're just getting started as a photographer, chances are you're going to be taking more of those bad looking shots when you're shooting with the light versus when you're shooting against it. So the next time you go out to shoot, do yourself a favor and try and shoot against the light, or another terminology for this is shooting on the shadow side. And I almost promise, you'll be coming home with better looking photos. Now, not overdoing it with camera gear when you're just getting started out as a photographer might be one of the most common things you are going to hear, especially on the internet, when it comes to taking on advice. And it is 100% true. But it's 100% true for a few key reasons, and a lot of the times people don't talk about these key reasons. The first one is money. Of course, more gear means you're going to be spending more money, but it's not just the dollar figure. It's the sunk cost in your mind. See, the thing is, especially when you're just getting started, it's really easy to think that spending more money on gear is going to equal better photos, but that is super, super wrong. Like, it couldn't be further from the truth. And that's because you need to know how to actually use the gear, not just have the gear, if that makes sense. For example, you could have the 50mm f1.8 lens, a great lens to start off with, especially if you are a beginner photographer, or you could have the 50mm f1.2 lens, another really, really good lens, but as a beginner, you are not going to be able to take advantage of all the benefits of a sharper, lower aperture lens that the f1.2 will give you, even though it costs more than 10 times the amount. You're not going to be taking better photos just because it's more expensive and because you have more gear. Having more gear also leads to so much more confusion, and it slows you down when you're out and about shooting. Instead of getting to a scene, having a 50mm lens on the front of your camera, and that being the only lens you've got, you might have a backpack full of 11 other lenses, and you get to a location and you go, wow, this is a beautiful composition. Should I be shooting this with the 14 to 24? Maybe I should get the 24 to 70. No, you know what? 70 to 85mm prime. All of a sudden, you are going to get paralyzed when you're out shooting, and you're going to come home with less shots, which is far from ideal. And that also means you're going to be shooting less and practicing less, which once again is also not ideal. Keeping your gear simple, especially when you're just getting started, is going to give you the breathing room to learn the fundamentals of photography and to just get better. And of course, keep this one really key thing in mind. If you can take photos with somewhat basic gear, imagine what you can do when you get your hands on gear that's the next step up. You're going to turn out as a better photographer if you don't overload yourself with gear in the beginning. Not editing your photos is you leaving so much of your photos potential on the table. I was about 7 to 8 months into my photography journey when I first discovered Lightroom. And if I had discovered Lightroom, and if I had been editing my photos from day one when I first got started with photography, I would have had so much more nicer photos. And I also would have understood how to take better photos because I would have been analyzing my images on a much deeper level rather than just looking at them on the back of my camera. And I also would have understood how to edit better earlier on. If you have done yourself the favor and you're already editing your photos in a platform like Lightroom, you will know how important it is, and you will know how much it can change your photography and, of course, the end result of your photos. But if you are yet to start editing your photos, I urge you to start today. Please, do yourself a favor and download Lightroom right now and start editing your photos. I've got a load of videos on my channel breaking down a load of different Lightroom tools, tips, tricks, full Lightroom breakdowns, you name it, so you can get started with that. Or if you want, you can also do yourself a massive favor and go and check out my Lightroom beginner course in the first link in the description. This breaks down every single thing you need to know about editing your photos in Lightroom. I go really in depth to make sure that you are left with zero questions. And I also set you challenges inside the course that you can complete alongside me guiding the way. So many of my students have said these challenges were the best thing inside the course, which is really cool to hear. And it is where they learned the most real world experience, which once again is a great thing to hear. So if you want, go ahead, do yourself a favor and check out my Lightroom beginner course in the first link in the description. And hopefully I'll be seeing you over there. Shooting everything really wide is another one of those pitfalls that you can easily fall into as a beginner photographer. And I did this pretty much from day one. I was addicted to shooting every single subject, every single style, every single niche of photography at 10 to 18 millimeters. You know the lens I'm talking about. That lens was glued on the front of my camera, but I wish it wasn't for two main reasons. One, when you shoot everything really wide, it kind of cheapens up your photography a little bit. Don't get me wrong, there are things and there are niches and styles of photography that do require wide shots, but definitely not every style of photography. And the other reason is that you do not level up your composition skills anywhere near enough to start seeing true progression in your photography. Shooting with a tighter focal length, I would say 35 millimeters, 50 millimeters, 85 millimeters or above is where you will really start to challenge yourself as a photographer, and it's where you really have to start asking yourself difficult questions about your compositions. It's where you'll start questioning if aspects of your composition add or take away from your image, if they should or shouldn't be in your image, and so on and so forth. So if you're serious about getting better at photography, stop shooting everything really wide and make sure you're practicing with tighter focal lengths. It'll do wonders for your progress. Not shooting consistently was the thing that held me back the most as a beginner. And that's because I'd been taking photos for, let's say, 6 months at that point, but really I'd probably gone out maybe 20 or 25 times to take photos in those 6 months. And when I'd come home and have a look at the photos on the back of my camera screen because I wasn't editing them yet, I would think to myself, wow, I've been doing this for 6 months and I'm nowhere near as good as I thought I'd be. Now, I had crazy high expectations of myself, and I thought 6 months into my photography journey, I should probably be a professional photographer by then. But because I wasn't shooting consistently enough, I wasn't seeing anywhere near the progress that I wanted to do, and that can be really disheartening, especially when you're just getting started. So, what can you do? Well, of course, I could just say go out and shoot a load, but there is one thing that I've recommended time and time again to people, and I've got amazing feedback when I do recommend it, and that is to set yourself a challenge. To set yourself a challenge of shooting consistently, but that's super vague, so how do you set it up correctly? Set yourself the challenge to shoot either 15 days in a row, 30 days in a row, 45 or 60 days in a row. And I know that might sound crazy, but I guarantee you that even if you set yourself the challenge of shooting every day for 15 days in a row, you will see insane progress in your photography. And that's because you'll constantly be thinking about your next shoot. You'll constantly be thinking about what you'll be shooting next, where you'll be shooting next, how you should shoot it, what gear you should take, so on and so forth. And then when you get to your next shoot, hopefully you'll have a load of things in the back of your mind from the last few days of you going out to shoot consistently that you'll know what you wanted to do different, what you should be looking for, where you dropped the ball in your last shoot, so on and so forth. Shooting consistently changed the game for me, and I promise it'll change the game for you too. All right, guys, there are 5 common beginner photographer mistakes I see people make all the time, and I also made myself. Once again, if you want to go ahead and check out my Lightroom beginner course, you can do so in the first link in the description. Go ahead and do yourself a favor and please start editing your photos. And if you want to continue learning about photo editing, video editing, you can check out this video right here, and I'll see you over there.